There we go. The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular city council meeting for June 6 is now in session. Councilmember Haywood would lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flag of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to make it here safely. Thank you for life itself. Thank you for continuing to watch over us. Lord, thank you for those that work in the city as staff, that as they keep moving forward and we keep adding people, that we're adding great people, and that they will take the city of Schertz to the top. And as we do the city's business, that we make sure that we're doing it based on what we think the city needs and how it needs to go. And I say, think about it, it's the way we need to grow, and we need to grow responsibly, knowing that we're going to grow. And I ask that you just continue to be watchful over us and keep us safe until the next appointed time. I cease blessings in your son's name. Amen. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the state of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, we'll move forward with the employee introductions. First, we have EMS.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams. Tonight I'd like to introduce to you a new part-time paramedic we have, Jennifer Villarreal. She came to us in March of this year. She grew up in New York State, specifically around the Buffalo area. She attended Canisius College and Penn State in Hershey. She has been in EMS for about 15 years now, comes to us with a significant amount of experience, and we're happy to have her. So welcome to Jennifer.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, welcome to our team.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, we have Neighborhood Services.
Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Williams, Council. I'd like to introduce to you new Code Officer Jesse Lee. Jesse Lee is born and raised in College Station, Texas. He served 13 years as a laboratory medicine laboratory assistant and is a veteran of the U.S. Army. His hobbies include training and racing his Dachshund, Ben, who was the state champion last year for racing wiener dogs. But Ben was disqualified this year for being too rough or pushy with the other racers. You can follow him in his racing career on Instagram at CuriousBen_Tales of Phoebe. He's married to his wife for 1 year. They just celebrated their 1-year anniversary the last weekend in May, who is the code enforcement officer in New Braunfels. So welcome, Jesse.
Glad to be here.
Welcome to our team, Jesse.
Thanks.
Next, we have Library.
Hi, Council. My name is Stephanie Barbosa, and I was actually here not that long ago, about a year ago, being introduced. So I have the pleasure of introducing Matt Saucier here. He has major Cajun French roots. He was born in Louisiana, where he moved around a lot through childhood and early adulthood, eventually receiving his Bachelor's of Science degree in Communications from McNeese State University in Lake Charles. He eventually made his way to Austin, where he graduated with his English and Language Arts Teaching certification from UT Austin. In the summer of '95, he started teaching English and speech and was also the visual coordinator for the band in MacArthur High School in San Antonio. After teaching speech for 7 years and audio video production for 13 years, he earned his master's in school counseling and was a counselor for 4 years before retiring in 2019. He joined us on May 8th and has been a welcome addition to our team since. Being a former teacher and now a library assistant, he has a natural curiosity for solving problems. He loves learning, discovering new things. He recently started a YouTube channel that's doing very well. In his YouTube channel, he does tutorials on baking, cooking, and DIY home projects. He's also an animal lover and the owner of a 5-year-old Chewini named Tattoo.
I would like to say thank you so much to everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve the community of Schertz. I live in Cibolo, but I'm serving the community of Schertz, which, anyway. I tend to be wordy, but I won't be wordy today. But also I want to say that I feel so honored to be at the library. Everyone there, the entire staff has been so welcoming and positive and nurturing and helpful and all that stuff. And I feel very fortunate and I appreciate the opportunity.
Welcome to our team, Matt.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Williams. I have the honor of introducing you to Sonia Trujillo. She started at the library as a library assistant in May. She is born in San Antonio, raised in Hondo, but graduated high school in San Antonio. Her first language is Spanish, which is why she has such a love and passion for the Spanish language. She attended Dallas Christian with a major in Bible and Christian education, and her background is elementary Spanish, and she's taught for 16 years at various private schools. She enjoys crafting, especially handmade cards with stamps, and is a basketball and baseball sports fan. And of course, her teams are the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Astros. She loves singing and music and sings in the choir. So we are so happy to have Sonia at the library, and I'll let you.
I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity.
Welcome aboard, Sonia. Next, we have EDC.
All right, we have two from EDC, and I have to go first. I'm Brian James, Deputy City Manager, and I have to introduce our new EDC Director, Scott Wayman, so that he can introduce his new staff person. So he may look familiar to some of you, and that's because for 27 years, or 37 years, starting out as a police officer with the city of Live Oak, he moved all the way up to be city manager and was very successful at that. Where he was not so successful, he says, was enjoying retirement. And that is where then he could not sit still, could not enjoy that. So he did a little bit of stint up in Bulverde, but then has come to us recently, and we greatly appreciate that. In case you don't know, Scott is married to his wife, Diane. He also has a daughter who has followed him in his footsteps into local government, and she's up in the Austin area. And lastly, in case you don't know, he has an aging poodle named Marty. So you're always welcome to ask and see how Marty is doing. So with that, I will introduce Scott Wayman.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. I will thank you guys from myself. You've made me feel very welcome with this city. And it gives me great pleasure. One of my first things to do is introduce one of our new members. Tracy Miller started with the city about 6 days after I started, and I think she feels like she's still dealing with me on my first day. Three days after I first started.
Let's get that straight now.
She comes with us. She comes from the great city of Kirby. Highly recommended. She already knows Encode better than anybody I know. We quickly have turned to her as the person that knows everything. And if you need anything in the office, you go to Tracy and she takes care of it. She's from San Antonio. She grew up in the area right there around kind of Kitty Hawk and 35, kind of in that area. She went to Roosevelt, and she's a Rough Rider. For Brian James, he likes to know what everybody's high school mascot is. She attended the St. Philip's College for a while in the Alamo College District, and we're very, very lucky to have her.
I'm not a real public speaker, so thank you all for the opportunity, and I'm going to enjoy working with the City of Schertz.
Well, welcome both of you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to city announcements and events. Of upcoming announcements, Mr. James.
Thank you, Mayor. So this Saturday, June 10th, we have our Nature Discovery Series, Discover the Forest. That's at Crescent Bend Nature Park from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The following Saturday, again, back at Crescent Bend, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we have our Edzucation in the park. And then our next council meeting will not be until Tuesday, June 20th, 6 o'clock, back here in council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. James. All right, announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a few of them tonight. So some happenings around the city as a part of Building Safety Month. Our Building Inspections Division set up a table at Lowe's Home Improvement on Tuesday, May 16th and May 23rd, and they answered any questions for shoppers. Also, on Memorial Day, we had the Memorial Day ceremony at the VFW Post 8513, held it in Schertz at our Veterans Memorial Plaza, and it was very well attended. We had approximately 115 people 50 people in attendance, and as you know, that'll rotate in future years. We're honored to have it here this year. The library had the Read Before bookstore held their sale event on June 2nd and June 3rd. We don't know what the final sales are yet, but it was very well attended, and more importantly, some very quality used books found their way into some grateful readers' hands. Our employee events, we had our yearly employee cookout, which is sponsored by our Employee Appreciation Committee. That was held on Thursday, May 25th at Pickerel Park. And we actually had a cornhole tournament, which was some good, fun, friendly competition. First place went to Sean O'Leary and Adam Samaniego from the police department. And second place went to Demetrio Martinez and Diego Martinez from Public Works. Also at that event, we had our Employee Excellence Awards, and Aaron Noah from Building Inspections received the honor of our Rising Star Award. That's for somebody who's been with the city for 3 years or less. Donisha Harden-Trussell, our Internal Services Director, she received the Leadership Award. That's for supervisors. And Rebecca Vera, the Neighborhood Services Manager, and Martin Trevino, Police Sergeant, both received the Employee of the Year Award, both well-deserved. We also celebrated the retirement of 2 long-tenured employees, Eddie Diggs from Engineering and Renee Zarate from Finance, both retired. Earlier today, we had our Shirt Strong Wellness Committee hosted the Employee Health Expo right over here in the Civic Center. And employees were offered biometric screenings, carotid artery screenings, 15-minute massages, which got everybody loose to go back to office, and over 25 businesses had booths and provided promotional items and information. It's just a great way for our staff to focus on their health and wellness. And that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Very busy week. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. The only one I have right now is congratulations for our city staff on those recognitions, on those. It means a lot when you recognize their leadership. Thank you for doing that. All right, we'll move on to the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. Do we have anyone that signed up for the?
Just one tonight,
Just one?
Mr. Mayor, James Thompson.
Mr. Thompson.
Hello, Mayor and Council. James Thompson of 1309 Arroyo Loma. They're Arroyo Verde neighborhood off of 3009. We've been made aware of a project that's come through, and they're trying to put a path through our easement. And the HOA is wanting to revisit that and come to a different conclusion. We visited, I think, with the city manager, Mr. James, and some others in the different meetings. I want to see if we can come to a different conclusion on that, different route of that path. And I believe that they have been giving us some consideration on that. So the board of Arroyo Verde has come to the conclusion we do not want that at this time. So not sure if everybody knows of the situation or if any different speaking could be on it. Just like to bring it up at the time.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Appreciate
Okay.
it. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda items. These are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, minutes. Item number 2, resolution number 23R48. Item number 3, appointment and reappointment for boards, commissions, and committees. And item number 4, resolution number 23R47. Council, do any of these need to be removed for separate action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 4?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Haywood and second by Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Council, any other comments? If not, please cast your vote. Councilmember Dalla, if you can just tell me how you want to vote?
Aye.
Okay, council has voted. Could you please publish the vote? Okay, the vote has been published and has it been recorded and confirmed. All right. And the vote is 7-0, 7 yeas and no objection. Motion passes. All right, we'll move on to discussion item. Item number 5, ordinance number 23T12, consideration or action approving an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing adjustments to the FY 2022-23 budget and other matters in connection therewith. This is our first reading. Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James Walters. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Schertz. In an effort to consolidate and only bring budget adjustments to council quarterly, or at least in larger groups, so we're not doing one-offs here and there, we have come before you tonight with a quarterly budget adjustment for our spring adjustments. We only have a couple that we've saved up. The first one I'm going to go over is fleet. The engine 2 repairs have come in a little bit higher than we anticipated. We also have seen some price increases, and fleet's just been really doing a really good job taking care of work orders as they come in, taking care of our vehicles. So with their increased efficiency and workload, along with the higher outside charges for engine 2, fleet needs about another $100,000 to continue operations for the rest of the year. We believe we can take that from our investment income, so we're going to recognize an extra $100,000 from our investment income. We've already hit our budget target thanks to the Federal Reserve raising rates all the way up to its current level of 5%. So we're going to come in over budget on our investment income thanks to that. The rest are pretty self-explanatory. Each year we get some training funds for our police officers. Those have been built up over a couple of years. This year the PD is going to try to get through all of those funds that have been saved up. It's called the Law Enforcement Standards and Education, the LEOS funds. That's $33,440 that we've have in the account. PD plans to use all of it, and this is the only thing that these funds can be used for. We also want to recognize an opportunity in EMS for paramedic training. So we're going to get $34,000. Actually, we've already received the $34,000 of training funds, and this goes to train other paramedics in the field to help cities and other EMSs around the state get more paramedics on the payroll. So that one, we already have the funds. We're already moving forward with that program. The last two are resolutions that council has already passed. They mentioned where the funding was coming from. This is just giving that additional authority and adjusting the budget to reflect those changes. The first one is $160,000 of roadway impact fees in Area 3 for land across Lower Seguin Road for future road improvements. That was already approved by Resolution 23R41. Area 3 has about $1.3 million of impact fees already there, so this is going to come out of that fund balance. And the last one is purchasing property on Dry Comal Creek for $262,000 out of the Parkland Dedication Reserves, as approved by Resolution 22R137. And this is a trailhead at the Great Springs Trail project. We believe at the end of the year, the Parkland Dedication Fund, after this purchase, will have about $7,000 remaining. Pretty much uses up all the funds available in that program. Those are the adjustments that we have before you tonight. If there's any other questions on it, I could help answer those. As I mentioned, we have 2 of them already approved by resolution, and then 2 that were already funded previously.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walters. All right, council, floor is open for discussion. No discussion. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 23T12?
Second.
Is that Councilmember Whitaker made the motion, second by Councilmember Hayward. Council, any other comments? You go ahead and cast your vote. Councilmember Dalla?
Aye.
Okay, all votes have been casted. Please publish the vote. You can go ahead and record the vote and confirm it. Thank you. All right. The vote is 7 yeas, no objection. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is a public hearing. Ordinance number 23S12. Conduct a public hearing and consideration or action on a specific use permit to allow a convenience store with gas pumps approximately 4.2 acres of land located on the intersection of North Greytown Road and IH-10, address 11185 IH-10 East, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas, property ID 619232. Sam, you have the floor.
Okay. Evening, council members, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Williams. Ordinance 23S12, specific use permit to allow a convenience store with gas pumps at Greytown Road and IH-10. Samuel Haas, senior planner. So, just to get our bearings here, the property in question is outlined in green here. We have Greytown Road just directly to the west, and this is IH-10 just to the south. This is at the intersection of those 2 roads. So state law requires that we notify property owners within 200 feet of the specific use permit request. On April 18th, 5 public hearing notices were sent, and a public hearing notice was published in the San Antonio Express on May 17th. Responses received as of May 24th, 2023, 2 in favor. This here is the specific use permit exhibit that was submitted. The subject property is 4.2 acres. The current zoning is general business. And in order to do per the applicant letter of intent, a proposed development will be a 6,500 square foot convenience store with gas pumps. Per the UDC requirements, the general business district requires the SUP for that. So here is a conceptual site plan. Of course, this is just a conceptual plan, just to kind of get an idea of the layout of what the applicant is proposing. There's going to be truck parking. There's going to be some diesel pumps there as well. And you can see the convenience store there towards the south end of the lot. The current land use designation identifies this area as highway commercial. Highway commercial is intended to allow commercial activity at major highway intersections. The proposed convenience store with gas pumps fits the retail land use desired in the highway commercial land use designation. The subject property is zoned general business along with a variety of other properties along the IH-10 corridor. Staff believes that the proposed use would enhance the condition of the property, as right now it is being used as essentially a storage yard. And in between, the next closest gas station is further down IH-10 on 1604, and then the other one is on Trainer Hale in IH-10. So that's about 6 miles in between gas stations. We think that a gas station here would be a good location. Staff recommends approval of the requested specific use permits based on the compatibility with the comprehensive land use plan, consistency with other properties in the same area and zoning district, and the quality improvement of the subject property with enhanced services. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval with a 7-0 vote on the May 10th regular meeting. Are there any comments or questions?
All right, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, so is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Okay, council, floor is open for discussion. No discussion? Is there a motion to approve 23S12?
So moved.
12.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilmember Hayward and second by Councilmember Watson. Any other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote. Councilmember Dalla?
Aye.
All right, all council has cast their votes. If you can go ahead and publish the vote. And the vote is 7 yeas, no objection. If you can go ahead and record the vote and confirm it. All right, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, now we have workshops. Item number 7, the city will conduct a workshop on proposed changes to the real property acquisition process and procedures. Ms. Gola?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams. I'm here today to talk to you guys about updating our real property acquisition process to both align it with city purchasing policy and processes of our benchmark cities, as well as make it more effective and efficient, hopefully, for both council and staff. So looking at our current process, it's not on the board for some reason. Hopefully you guys can see it. Current process is we come to you guys with an initial discussion and approval. Thank you very much. For council to give us a not to exceed. We then enter contract negotiations with the property owner. We come back to council for approval of that offer amount, enter an official offer, do all the final closing, and then we own the property. In reaching out to a few of our benchmark cities, New Braunfels, Seguin, San Marcos, their process is a lot more streamlined. If it's under $50,000 and in the budget, no additional approvals are needed. So if it's a right-of-way for a project or an easement for a project, no additional approvals needed. If it is over 50K or a budget adjustment is needed, they take it to council with a resolution for both at the same time. After those negotiations have been completed, then they make the offer and do the closing. What we're proposing is going to align more with our general procurement policy, which is construction and maintenance projects that are in the budget that you guys are already aware of, that are under $50,000 would not require council approval, just like our general business expenses do now. Obviously, if they're over $50,000, like any of our individual projects, we would come to you guys and get that approval. Unique property acquisitions. As y'all know, we've done some unique property acquisitions as of late. We are not proposing a major change to that. We still want to come to you first, make sure you guys are on board with acquiring that property, get that not to exceed based on a comparative market analysis or a third-party appraisal, and then we would go out, do the negotiations. If we're under that not to exceed and under $50,000, we would proceed with Mr. Williams signing the contract. Otherwise, we would come back to you all to get formal approval for over $50,000, or if we've gone over that not to exceed that you gave us initially. So just, again, council resolution on any property over $50,000, so just like any contract we do now, over 50, and if we're going above that agreed upon not to exceed. This does two things for us. One, it improves efficiencies, prevents us from having to go talk to property owners on multiple occasions, having them sign documents, wait an extended amount of time before we can countersign. We don't risk losing properties that way. Kind of gives us a little freedom in that negotiation. And then the other thing it does is it frees up your time and our time, so we're not addressing the same things multiple times on the same property with the same group of people. So with that, the policy change does not actually require council approval. It is an internal policy. However, we did want to bring that to you because it is a change to our standard operating process, and just wanted to make sure you guys were comfortable and see if you had any conversation about it. So, comments and questions?
Thank you. All right, council, floor is open for discussion. It's going to be a quick meeting. I do have one question. Do we have an agent, when there's property involved and we want to purchase, do we have an agent? Because once they find out it's the city ones, the prices double or triple.
Yes, sir. We have gone out for RFP and did a formal procurement and have an established contract with an agent.
Okay.
That is not affiliated with any of our wonderful council members so that there's no ethical violations there. And she's been doing a wonderful job helping us negotiate and acquire these properties.
Thank you. That's the only question I had. Council, any other comments?
Well, thank
All
you
right.
guys so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, discussion and consideration and/or action regarding the Schertz Historical Preservation Committee and the reconstruction of their committee. That one's mine, so let me bring up my notes. Okay, the Historical Preservation Committee had a meeting, and there were 7 items that were addressed. And what I like to do is address 3 and then number 4. No, there's four of them that we'll address, and then we'll go with 5, 6, and then 7, so that we can. There's a couple of items that they requested. During their meeting, there was the first item was to be allowed to be self-sufficient. Also, the Church Historical Preservation Committee wanted to write and post their minutes themselves. They also would like to have access to Office 360 accounts and a SharePoint access. And the other item is, we'll go ahead and just go with those 3 first. The self-sufficient write and post their minutes and access to Office 360 and SharePoint. Now, a couple of things that I more or less agree with what they want, but there's certain items I think the council needs to be aware of. The first one is they require no city staff will be required to attend the meetings, but would require a city facility to hold their meetings. Understanding that the meetings will, the thing is that we have to make sure that they post their meetings on a scheduled date and they abide by that schedule. So providing the facility, I don't think is an issue at this point. Since we already provide something, they have access to the chamber, they have access to the library. Being self-sufficient, if we don't require staff to be there, I think that's a plus for us. However, when they want to, on the minutes, I do have an issue with the minutes. The minutes are required for each meeting. I think it is important that they provide minutes since they are part of a city committee, and the minutes should be no more than 60 days behind. In other words, they can miss 1 minute, but they should have it by the next meeting. I think that's one requirement that we should go ahead and stress on. Minutes are required. The agenda has to be posted too. It's posted for every meeting, and I don't think that we can go ahead and sideline the posting of any agenda for any committee. They will have to be required to post their agenda 72 hours prior to their meeting. And the third one, I think those are the 3 that we had concerning. The SharePoint is something I have to bring up with Mr. James here and see how we're going to approach that one. But those are the 3, the first 3 we want to address is the self-sufficient, the writing and posting of the minutes. Council, what discussion on those 3 items? Yes, Councilmember Whitaker.
So being self-sufficient, we just mean that they're running their own meetings?
That is correct. They post the agenda, they write the minutes, no city staff is required.
Okay, where are we on their bylaws? Have they changed those, or are they still?
They're going to review their bylaws, and I think they plan to do the bylaws and procedures differently. It's all gathered into one document. They're going to have 2 documents, their bylaws and procedures.
Okay. So my only it goes with the self-sufficiency goes along with the request for resources. So if no one knows what they're doing, but they're asking for or requiring resources, I just want to make sure that that makes sense with what they, as from a city perspective, what we want them to be doing or what we would expect from them. Because if there's no one there and they're asking for resources, how do we know how those resources are being used? So I do think that to kind of tie that together, it's absolutely critical that they have their agenda posted, that we get clear minutes. And if there's nobody else there, I don't know how the other work, but we require it to be recorded. We don't require it now.
We don't require it now. No, that's correct.
But does every other committee meet with a staff member? Or?
Every other board and commission has a staff person there. Staff records the meeting. We draft the minutes for them and take them and be approved. Yeah, there's a staff person. So the way they've started doing it is the chair will email staff the agenda. We'll pull it together in Agenda Quick and post it. They will post meetings, send staff an email with requests for expenditures that they want to make or staff to purchase for them. We ask that the chair and the vice chair be copied on that so we know that it's kind of coming from the board, if you will. And again, they've just had their first meeting without us there, so we're not sure how long it's going to take them to get the minutes drafted.
Is it a problem to ask them that or tell them they have to record it if there's no one else there? I mean, because I'm just saying, worst case scenario, they're either not good at taking minutes or they're somehow inaccurate. There's no other, obviously, we struggled with, this particular committee being organized, and so happy to let them give it a go, but I think there should be a little bit of checks and balances there.
Yeah, there certainly is a way we could work out for them to have something from the city to record their minutes on, and then staff pick that up and provide them a copy of it for creating the minutes, and then for us to have a copy as well.
I think it would be helpful for them too, that they could follow up with that when they're doing their minutes. So that would be my one suggestion.
Their expenditures are tracked anyway, aren't they?
Excuse me?
Any expenses that they incur are tracked by the city.
They are. So they have a process where they can make expenditures in advance up to a certain amount. The board can then approve those. Once the board approves them, the city will pay them. So they've always had that process. And then again, they've also had this process where they've decided to make expenditures as a group and let staff know. The way we're dealing with that now, since we're not at the meetings, is we're asking for the chair to email us, copying the vice chair, so that we take that as face value that the board has approved that expenditure for something larger. So for instance, coming out of this last meeting, they wanted business cards. They wanted a pop-up tent with their logo on it. They wanted tables, chairs. They wanted magnets for vehicles, on the side. So those they've sent us, and we're processing those.
They're being a little more active.
They are more active in purchasing things, yes. Yes.
Yeah. It seems
but
like,
I will say the event, the cemetery event, which they co-partnered with, was a very good event. I think good turnout
definitely.
on that. Yes, sir.
So when we look at the first three items that they want, it seems like the council wants to go ahead and let them be self-sufficient, but let's go ahead and hear from Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, I think we're making this more difficult than it has to be. I mean, we're talking about making them post agendas, record minutes, which means they're not standalone. They're a city committee, just like we have or a city board, just like Parks and Rec and everything else. I don't understand. I mean, they're one of the ones where they can be a standalone entity. They can be the Schertz Historical Preservation Society, whatever they want to call it, and be true standalone, where we don't have to worry about council liaisons, city staff members, tracking their minutes, tracking agendas, because it's not really an official city function. And why not, to help them out, just do like we do with the prescription plan or the Schertz Housing Authority or a few other things, if they become a standalone private entity, a nonprofit, we can turn around and make a city donation to the nonprofit that could cover what they want to buy. It could cover them setting up their own website. It could cover them setting up, getting their own SharePoint with a private vendor. You know, we do this with a lot of other, we do it with the Chamber of Commerce. We provide them a building. We offset some costs for the chamber. I just think that it's either a board like all our other boards, or it's just a private entity. And in this particular case, with what they deal with, I think it might be more appropriate for the Historical Preservation Committee, Society, whatever you want to call it, to be their own private organization. And the city, we can make a decision and say, well, here's an annual allotment, or here's something to go towards your thing, and they can go out and be a nonprofit and solicit money and funds from other sponsors in the community. I think that would be the more appropriate way to go, rather than creating some new hybrid that, you know, if we say we don't have a council liaison, okay, how are you going to do away with a council liaison a staff liaison, if you're still going to sit there and say, well, they have to post an agenda, and they have to do minutes, and we want the minutes done in 60 days. All those things are going to require somebody on the staff to be more involved than we really need.
No, your point is well taken, and I think that is a proposal that we had requested back in March, and this council said no. This council did not want them to be self-sufficient in this way. They wanted more involvement with this committee, if I recall. I think what my proposal was to let them be a self-sufficient and see how it works out for 6 months, and this council said no. Now I'm hearing something different from the same council. So let's open it up. Councilmember Hayward.
I was just gonna say, I thought we discussed this a couple months ago, and when there was comments made to let them just kind of become their own, nobody wanted them to do that. They wanted them to still be part of the city. And to my knowledge, that's not what the Historical Society wants either. They still want to be part of the city. They just are trying to find their way as a committee to figure out what to do. And to my knowledge, all of the other boards and commissions, we typically tend to do the agenda, the staff does the agenda for them. They don't have a staff person that does the agenda, so they've always just kind of did it when their chairman would always kind of do it and put it together. Am I correct, Brian James?
Yeah, so when Dean Wertz was
Right.
chair, he would put it together. But staff has offered, and for a period of time as they were in transition, we would offer a bit more support of creating the agenda. Here's what you talked about last meeting, so we're going to stick that on, and then would shoot it over to them. I just want to be clear, it wasn't as though staff wasn't willing and didn't
Right.
offer, and at times step in and say, let us create the agenda. For example, we made a big push to get them to say, we really need to get you to do your agendas on Agenda Quick so that everything links up on our websites. When folks are looking for it, they can find it. So yeah, this board has had a history of greater self-sufficiency. But again, I will say, for an example, the library board used to do their own minutes. They used to keep their own finances. And the city said, in part, you know, we can do those administrative tasks for y'all, and then y'all can focus on the mission of your board or commission. Let us do that kind of paperwork sort of stuff. So.
Now, when they're at their last meeting, I didn't make it, but they're talking about self-sufficiency. They're not saying because to my knowledge, when we had this conversation, none of them that were here having the discussion or speaking to us wanted to be separate and apart and become a 501(c)(3). They wanted the city to continue to allow them to fall under the city and not necessarily be a separate entity, correct?
Yeah, so maybe to help, if it will, or maybe it doesn't help, gauge the city manager's look on this. You may recall that some months ago, staff brought forth them because of some of the struggles and said, we think you guys might do better to not be an official city board or commission, gives you more flexibility, lets you do things that you want to do. At that meeting, they did not want that. Someone said, you know, we think if we were to be our own 501(c)(3), we kind of wouldn't have the commitment. We said, you don't necessarily have to be a 501(c)(3). And their response to that was, no, we still want to be a city board or commission like all the others. That's what we came and presented council to and said this was staff, but they said, no, they want to still be a city board or commission. Council at that time, I think, said, you know, we'll let you keep doing that, see how it goes, try to get yourself focused, figure out where you want to be. I think, again, the thing that just made me tell you what I think is that was a little bit odd is when we had the next meeting, their direction was, we don't want staff to provide any more support, which was a different direction than we expected. We, again, expected staff to continue to provide that support for them. And again, that would let them focus on what they want to do with their mission in terms of being the Historic Preservation Committee. So I will say this, I think it took a bit of a turn that I don't think anyone anticipated after council's direction of, try to find your direction and figure out where you go. They sort of went a different way, not being critical of it, just maybe not what we all sort of expected. And so I can appreciate the comment. If they sort of don't want staff there, if they don't want the city's support, it kind of does beg the question, so why do you want to be a city board or commission? And I'll say this, my opinion is, it's for the financial support. There was probably a different way to deal with that. Because again, even as I said, the way staff is dealing with it, we're assuming that the email from the chair and vice chair is reflective of the committee's action. Have no reason to doubt otherwise. It's just not typically how
And
we
I think
operate.
Councilmember Davis made a valid point that if we, because everything they're asking, basically they want to be separate, but they just need the funds and they need the facility. And I think we can provide those too.
I think so as well. Again, interestingly enough, when we had the 2 meetings ago, which was post the council, and they started talking about it, we had this conversation about where they would meet, and they were going to meet here, and staff said, easy enough for us to come in, open it up. I usually tend to work late a lot. One of us can lock it up for you, not a big deal. That's how we thought they were going to proceed, and then we found out from them after the meeting that nope, they met separately and decided they want to meet in the library, which is fine. So you're correct. We certainly can offer that room for them free of charge for their meetings. And again, as Councilman Davis said, we have other organizations that we provide monies to for their operation that benefit the community and the good. And there's a way to do that. It does sort of beg the question, if we do that, do they still need to be an official city board or commission where they're having to post their agenda, they're having to do their minutes? Again, we're still happy to take articles from them for the magazine on historic. So there's a way to do that.
There's a way to do it, like you said. We can always post their minutes. They don't have to be a city committee to post their minutes. We can also look at the other options.
We sort of have links to different organizations that we partner with on our website. So again, we'll have a thing. I think, for example, when BVYA is having registration for Little League, it's on there so our residents know. It's not our organization we partner, but we still have the way to do that sort of a thing. So I think it does sort of beg the question, given the choice of direction, does that then change council's position and say, maybe we try this different version? I'll defer to you.
I mean, for me, I was all about letting them do their own thing. The last time we had the council. Then after that council meeting, I've run into several of the committee members and they're going, oh, thank you for your support. So I'm like, okay, did you want to be a part of it? You don't. So I don't know that they actually, it's sort of like every time they have a meeting, they kind of change. But I have no, they go from, I want to be with the city to don't want to be with the city.
And so to be clear, I've not heard them say they don't want to be an official city board or commission.
Right, okay.
They simply don't want staff at the meetings, and they're willing to do their own minutes to account for that.
So when you came last time, we were going to just kind of cut the ties. Should we just kind of say, we'll support you, and here's being your own thing, or they want to still be part of the city just to make sure they're going to get funding?
So let me be clear. I think when staff talked to them at the meeting a few times ago and whatnot, we sort of provided the option. We can provide a space for you to meet. We can probably find a way to provide that financial funding for you. We can still help sort of promote things as we do. You don't have to be a official city board or commission, and that was not what they wanted at the time. They were opposed to that. So to be clear, that's what we understand their position is. The bit of a veer that was a little bit odd afterwards is when they met the next time, they said, that's great, we don't need you at the meetings, we got our own stuff, was not what staff anticipated. And then Mayor, just, I don't know if you were going to cover this. The other thing that they talked about was.
There's 7 items, yeah. There's
You're
7
good,
items.
okay.
Yeah, I just want to address the first 3, but I think going to the first 3, but I'll let Councilmember Whitaker, answer any questions she might have. Councilmember Whitaker?
So I wanted to, after Councilman Davis said his thing, pretty much exactly how I felt the last time we brought this up. And I do feel like there's different sentiment here. So my initial comment was only addressing, because I assumed the entire council or the council in majority wanted to move forward with this as a committee, and therefore I wanted to address your questions and what they're asking for. I do think maybe we ought to ask the council one more time if we think that this is the right path forward for this committee, because here's my thing. They as a group do not want to leave the protection of the city is the thing, but they don't want to follow the rules and the restrictions that come along with being a committee with the city, and that's what we explain to them. Being a city committee requires you to do X, Y, and Z. There's all these rules. It restricts you from doing what you want to do. I think my perception is that they feel more comfortable having the city behind them to, I'm not really sure exactly what they're looking for, because we did offer them financial support. We did offer them the resources of a space to meet. So the only thing that really is left is a protection. And I'm concerned that they're creating a liability because they don't want any oversight. And not that a historical preservation committee can go out there and do something really crazy. I'm not worried about that. But to me, it doesn't make sense to me to give them these things that they're asking for, because what they're really asking for is we want autonomy. We want to give them, I think that they should have autonomy. I don't think that they should be part of a city committee. I think the concept of a historical preservation committee is a good thing, but in practice here with this group at this time, it's not working. And they're asking to move even further from what looks like a city committee. So I would suggest we reevaluate whether we want to support that. And ultimately, they as a group, they don't want to not be a city committee, but it's not their final decision. They're a wonderful group of people, wonderful volunteers. I appreciate their passion for history, their desire to spend time to support the history of Schertz and to promote that. But ultimately, I would suggest it is the council that would decide whether or not this is the right thing for the city.
All right, Councilmember Brown.
Again, I thought we had a consensus last time as well, but it certainly sounds like they've taken off on a couple directions. And I'm right with Councilman Whitaker and Councilman down there at the end. Yeah, hey. But you can't have both and be effective, okay? We're not the big city of San Antonio, so it's kind of hard for us to say, just, go out and raise funds and you'll do fine. But at the same time, we can still support them in an independent 501, C3 foundation or something like that, where we can give them some funds, we can give them some support, but they can also go out and get their own funds, their own support, and make their own agenda. Join the parades and hold events and things along that line. But if they're going to be a city function, they need to have some structure that goes along with the city. And minutes are our official way of recording what's going on. And we can go back 30 years and look at the minutes and see who said what, on every issue. And we need to have that. We can't just go, well, we had a good meeting. We need $6,000 to do this function. So I'm kind of leaning towards, if we want to give them the best support, I think having them turn into an individual standalone foundation would probably be in their best interest long run, as well as short term, because we're going to support it. But I agree with liability. Down the road, he said, she said, if we don't have official minutes, if we don't have official recordings, we could be opening ourselves up.
Good point. Good point. Which brings me down to item number 4. They want to be removed from the interview committee and allow themselves to pick and choose who they want to appoint on their committee. They feel that they can find someone that has a passion for, historical items or events, and so they want to interview their own and then forward that individual to the Schertz interview committee for approval. So it comes down to exactly what you're all saying here, is that they do want to be self-sufficient in a way. And I think approaching this by just suspending everything that we have to do for them can accomplish that without taking the big step of removing them from a city thing. We just suspend all the items. Councilmember Davis, you had.
No, I'm looking online here, and it looks like the Seguin. There's the Seguin Conservation Society. It looks like it's a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit. New Braunfels has got one that's a nonprofit. If we're going to go, like I said, we're creating a whole new level of stuff that's still requiring all the staff input, but they want to pick their own members, and they want to do this, and they may or may not want to do agendas, and they may or may not want to do minutes. To me, this is a perfect example of something that should be a nonprofit. Let them create the Schertz Conservation Society, the Schertz Historical Preservation Society, whatever they want to create. They can be whatever they want. They can elect their own officers. They can charge membership, give out free membership. They could get sponsors. I think it's probably a more appropriate. I think the city's best avenue would be to turn around and offer them support. For example, we have the chamber sitting in one of our buildings. This is nothing against the chamber, I don't think of it that way. But we own the Kramer House, and that's a historic structure, surrounded by old tractors and all the other stuff. I mean, there's no reason why the city of Schertz could not go look and find another historic structure somewhere, get it, refurb it, and say that's the Schertz Historical Preservation Society building. I mean, we can help on that avenue. If like I said, we can make a donation. We do it for medical support for Guadalupe County. We do it for the Housing Authority. We can give them a donation. We can be a sponsor of the Historical Preservation Society. And I'm sure they could get Amazon and HEB and a whole bunch of other folks, certain real estate companies in the area could help be sponsors. Hell, I'll be more than happy to make a donation. But I think the path that they're on, and for what they do in the community, it makes more sense for them to be a standalone nonprofit entity. And the only relationship going backwards would be if they have an area that they want to designate as a historical landmark, then that can be coordinated through the city, through the staff and the council, to meet whatever those requirements are. But I just don't see where we're creating this hybrid thing where they're off on their own, but there's still a city committee makes any kind of sense. But it's still going to type the staff in for the options that you're bringing up.
Councilmember Hayward, before I allow you to speak, I want to give Councilmember Dahl an opportunity to speak.
So I would pretty much concur with what Councilman Davis is saying. I think we're kind of in an either-or situation with them, to either set them up where they're a nonprofit and let them pick their own members and let them get funding from us on some type of grant basis, and then they can submit every year for review of the grant for next budget year, and as part of that they can show us what they spent their money on, and if we agree with it, then great, we'll renew the grant, and if not, then we don't, or we continue to do it as a city-tied organization and follow the processes that we have established for that.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Okay, Councilmember Hayward. Okay, the other two items, basically, Councilmember Davis addressed them. Funds to purchase items in the future, and I think those can be settled, like you said, if we do allow them to be a standalone. And space, same thing. So it brings me back to Mr. James. How are we going to address this to the Schertz Historical Preservation Committee that I think that they should go standalone based on what they're requesting?
Yeah, so I think if the general feeling of council is that that's where we are based on it, then that's sort of the decision. You certainly may have to take a separate action to do away with it officially. I'm not even sure you really have to do that. And catching Dan by surprise here, but.
Oh, no, I've been just waiting. There've been many things said that, no, so it depends on how they were created. Yeah, if they're officially created, yeah. Then yeah, you would have to undo that, right? And, you know, the best route, if they're not going to be part of the city, is obviously for them to be a 501c3. That's actually a necessary step. If they're going to actually function as a historic preservation society that's going to receive public funds, yeah. Those public funds have to meet the three-part test that the Supreme Court and Constitution established. So there is still some of that oversight. I was waiting for you to, I know you know what the three-part test is. Well,
I was going to let you name off the three parts.
Well, so, I mean, it has to serve a public purpose. City has to retain some oversight of the use of those funds, and there has to be some return benefit to the public, right?
That's right.
So that's the three-part test.
I just want to make sure you know it.
I know what it is. But, yeah, so that's how a lot of them function that way. They also, and Councilman Davis asked me this question about historic preservation being eligible for hot funds. There is some ways that they can be eligible for hot funds as well. There are some strings attached to that, but yeah, there'd be a couple of steps in this action that would have to be taken.
Yeah. So certainly if council this is the direction you want to go, we can put an item on the next agenda to end them in as official city board or commission. We at that point can then let them get themselves organized as a 501c3 and then come back and deal with the funding after they've done that. You know, I think is doable. So if that's the direction, we can do that.
Yes, I think that is the direction.
Okay. And I can certainly reach out to them tomorrow, the chair, and let him know. Okay.
Councilmember Scagliula.
Yeah, here's the thing. You know, I keep writing down all the buzzwords we need to concern ourselves with: the you know, oversight and structure, legitimacy, credibility of being an official city sanctioned function. You know, I kind of pride myself on not being an either or kind of guy. I'd rather be known as an and kind of guy. You know, how do you get the win-win? I don't see how you get a win-win. You can't be autonomous and be associated at the same time. However, I don't know if we've really gotten the full story yet about what's going on. I keep hearing bits and pieces of the whole story, but I haven't heard the whole story yet. I really don't know what their feelings are. You know, why is it they want to continue to be part of the city? Why is that? What is their exception or to being a nonprofit? You know, and then again, how does that benefit them being a nonprofit? I can understand. It pains me, it really does, that a board or commission wouldn't want to play by the rules of the bureaucracy. Hey, I'm sorry. You know, that just goes along with the territory. You post your agenda, you post your minutes. If you're not willing to do that, then you're really not willing to be a part of the city's infrastructure. So, but once again, I haven't heard the full story yet.
So, Councilman.
Can I answer real quick? Just because, I mean, I went to the committee meetings for a year, and I think your question was answered at the meetings, and you know what we just heard from the attorney is that it is a lot of work to start up a 501c3. There's a lot of responsibility. I think that's what they don't want. And I think they recognize that if it's going to require that much effort to get started on their own, they don't have the interest and the dedication. And they said that. I mean, I think they said that in our meetings. They acknowledged that if it's up to them to start all over again, then they're going to dissolve, because there's just not that much. So there's just not that much interest in continuing and starting from scratch is how they would perceive it. And it is a lot of work. So I think that question has been answered. So staying attached to the city avoids them having to establish themselves, meet that certain criteria. It's a lot easier doing the way they're doing now. Like, oh, we just, we want to spend this money, and there's a little bit less requirement to prove the value to what they're doing. And we've let them do that for quite a while. I mean, anyway. So yeah, I was there. So I can tell you that what the committee members said, I think that they were pretty clear in their feelings on why they didn't want to leave the city's protection. But that's why I feel like, okay, we gave them that shot, go out on your own. Do kind of reorganize yourselves, regroup, and see, how we can make this work as a city entity. And their response is, we want to stay with the city, but we don't want any of the oversight. So exactly what you're saying, Councilman Scagliola, if they're going to be part of the city, they have to meet this criteria. So, if you want to give it one more shot, you must abide by the committee, the way the committees operate, or we dissolve you. I personally don't think we need to ask them that question. I think we just need to, I just don't think it's working.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I would say if you want the story, the minutes from that meeting prior to coming to council, I think reflect the reasons that they were concerned about becoming a 501c and the reason that they wanted to be under the umbrella of the city. The other thing I'll say that has been a little bit of a challenge with this group as well is the idea of, if you're city board or commission, you can have subcommittees. There's the provision for that in their bylaws. P&Z, as Councilman Dalano, created a subcommittee to look at their bylaws and look at ordinances, and council's done that and things like that. One of the issues with the historic committee is they will go meet as a group outside of the meeting, and again, they're not subject as presently organized by the Open Meetings Act, but it sort of defeats the purpose that if you're a city board or commission and you're all as a group, your stuff you need to talk about this stuff there and then with public notice and things like that, as opposed to apart. And I think that was a challenge at times that we had with them, is you guys really need to be dealing with this stuff at the meeting.
Councilmember Haywood.
So we basically drug it along for a month knowing we would get here. I think we cut them loose, we still support them in the way they need to be supported. We vote for it and figure out how we need to not let them be a city committee, and then we support them in the way we need to, and then if they need help, the staff can address that help with them to get them going down the road of being a committee like all of the other cities where they are fully funded in their 501(c)(3)s, or however it is. And let's just move on.
Let's bring it up to their attention during the next meeting before we take any action from here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't like the idea of dissolving the Schertz Historic Committee before we have something else to take its place. So many times we cancel something altogether without having a backup plan. I need to feel comfortable that we actually have a backup plan. Once you lose your historic perspective, it's nearly impossible to get it back. We learned that about 15 years ago when we, or maybe even more, when we put this together, because we recognized that we were losing so much. I don't want to create a vacuum and just do away with it and then have their nonprofit fall on its face, and then the city of Schertz is left without any type of historic perspective.
So let me offer this, Councilman Scaglio. I can certainly appreciate that. So keep in mind, we have all the boards and commissions minutes from their meetings. We have the articles that they wrote, the newsletter, the special. And again, they've not written one in some time, but we have all of those and we have records of those. We are not going to get rid of those, again,
You know, there was talk of how do we make them more usable? How do we make sure they're copies at the library? So we will not lose those things that document our history, you know, going forward. And again, I think it's part of the challenge is finding that group that wants to sort of take this on and do it as a mission, you know, going forward. If there's not that group, there's not that group. And you know, it could be at times that going a few years without, folks in the community say, you know, we really should have this. And we say, here's the history of it. You know, city's willing to provide some support, and they take up the mantle and they run with it. And sometimes you kind of have to go through that, I would say, you know, to make it workable.
No, and I think I providing, speaking to, you know, when they have their next committee meeting, we can bring these options up to their attention and see which direction they want to go. No, there's value in what they do. But as everyone has indicated, it is a city committee and details are important. So, you know, the minutes are needed, the agendas also needs to be posted. That's all part of all the other committees.
And I want to be clear, they've not balked at that at all. They've said, sure, we'll send you the agenda, we can post it, we'll craft the minutes and get them to you. You know, I just want to be clear, there's not been an issue with that. I didn't mean to imply that's not the case. I think the question is they're not really operating like a typical city board or commission. And again, if they're not doing that.
Yeah, because this committee has to be proactive. They have to look for things because all the other committees, things are brought to them. For instance, the Parks and Rec, things are brought to their attention. The planning and zoning, board of adjustments. All these are things that the city brings to their attention that they have to vote on and make decisions on. This one needs to be different. It's a proactive approach on what are we going to do next? How are we going to take care of this? So sure, it certainly provides a different challenge than the other. But let's go ahead and bring it up to their attention at their next meeting, and then we'll bring it back to this council, which direction they wanted to go with. Councilmember Haywood, you had another question.
I just had one other thing. We all think history is important, and I agree history is important. And I just want everyone to know that I think because of the Kramer House, and a lot of people see some historical artifacts in there. I was there one day when someone brought an old shoe into the Kramer House and gave it to Maggie and said, hey, I found this. I didn't know where to take it, so I brought it here. So the history is still being collected by different people. I know that some of our historical items have been destroyed a few years ago. A lot of it went away because they didn't have anywhere to store it or they decided they weren't keeping it. I have no idea. But we're going to always have history because there's always someone that's going to provide something, be it to the Kramer House or to the Chamber or to the city. We will have the history. The History Society can go do its thing, but I just wanted David to know that people are providing history and they're taking it to the Kramer House.
Okay. I think we have a direction which way we're going to go with this.
Okay, so again, the direction, just so I'm clear, staff will communicate to them, to the chair and vice chair, to ask the board to, the committee to watch the video of this meeting when it's posted. They will discuss it at their next meeting. They will provide direction. Some response probably in writing would be helpful to send it up to staff, and the mayor will then, once we get that, put that in the packet, put it on an agenda to discuss so you have their feedback and direction as the direction. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. James. All right, we'll move on. Item number 9 is the monthly updates, and item number 10 is also the updates on projects in progress. This information has been provided to the council and available for viewing at our website, Schertz.com. So with that, we'll move on to requests and announcements. Council, any possible updates or information you're requesting from staff? Council Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Yeah, we have a comp plan review committee now, and I know they met with planning and zoning. Is there a plan for them to meet with the city council?
It's not on the agenda, so yeah, certainly staff, based on the initial meeting with P&Z, we're pulling together a plan to get some direction from council with that for them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just thought that was a little loose. That's all.
Anything else? Okay, and council, any possible actions you want to place on the future agenda item? I think Councilmember Scagliola requested a discussion item. New procedures,
That's true.
so we can have that on our next meeting. Council, any other items on the agenda? All right, announcements by our council members. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Again, thanks for partnering with the other cities for the Memorial Day event. It was done very well, and look forward to future events being moved around to our communities. And great support. Thanks.
Councilmember Davis.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Councilmember Watson.
Nothing right now.
Councilmember Whitaker.
Nothing.
Councilmember Dalla.
Nothing tonight.
Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, the Memorial Day, got a couple of comments about that. One, I love the new bricks they have out there, and the landscaping is looking really nice. So kudos to the Parks Department and everybody else who was involved with that. And then also the Knights of Columbus, they provided refreshments after the event. Thought that was very nice of them. Went off to the EMS banquet. It's been a while since we had one because of the COVID, so it's nice to have the crowd back together again. And then the other thing, the gathering of the employees out at Pickerel Park. About the only question I have is, hey, who won the cornhole toss? What department?
It was the police department.
There you go.
And Councilmember Hayward.
Yes, I have a few things. I want to bring back up because I wasn't here. I did the Animal Advisory Committee meeting, and I just want to let everyone and give kudos to the animal services staff. They did a fantastic job over there. When there was an outbreak of pan and parvo, they jumped right into gear, making sure things were in place. They wanted not to completely shut down the animal shelter, so they did a little revamping so that residents could just drop off any strays without not having a place to go. That was a decision that they made. I also want to say kudos to the police department that oversee that allowed them to be able to do the things that they need to do to make that a fantastic place. I support them. I would encourage other people to go and take the tour. I just don't go anymore because I'm not going home with a pet. But they are fantastic. And I also attended the International Council of Shopping Centers in Las Vegas. I think that was a good turnout. I went with the mayor, Steve Williams, Scott Wayman, Paul Macalusco, I didn't want to mess up his name, and Ashley Ritchie from EDC. And I think we had a great, it was a great event. We got to make connections. We got to see how things were working. We got to meet with different retailers and restaurateurs and just making those connections so that we can hopefully eventually bring some things and some good things back from Schertz. It was an amazing and overwhelming event. They also had classes that we could attend the first day. And it was magnificent. I did learn a lot. And then the Memorial Day ceremony, I think it was a fantastic job. I like the fact that now all of the surrounding cities that are part of the chamber will take turns in doing the event. And thanks to the Knights of Columbus for hosting the refreshments after. It was just a great overall event, and kudos to everyone. Thanks. That's all.
Okay. The time is now 7:18. We stand adjourned.